Okay, now here we are ending the course, and so you will be completing a final written proposal and a final presentation on your project. So within this PowerPoint, I'm going to go over some guidelines. This is basically just an introduction to what the expectations are. There are a lot of examples on D2L that I would like for you to take a look at and review because visually it'll be easier to see. Again, I'm just going to go over some of the comments, but I just want to make sure that you are familiar and that you see all of the samples available. So to start off, obviously this has to be a typed document. And it needs to follow the APA format. It's required for everything, including the reference citations, the title page, the abstract, everything that's included in your project itself needs to have APA formatting. So there's two links on this slide that you can click on. One, the Purdue OWL website that I'm sure all of you have visited before, and then an APA tutorial if you need further assistance. Okay, this is the order of your proposal, how you should be submitting it, starting with the title page, table of contents, your abstract, which we'll go over later within its own separate PowerPoint, the body of your actual paper, your references, and then the appendix. So I'll go through each one of these individually. So just some format details to pay attention to. Again, we are following APA for this entire project. So you can see the example on the slide to the right that follows the APA guidelines for the title page. So you want to make sure that you have your running head and you want to make sure that your numbering is there. Again, definitely take a look at the APA guidelines within Purdue OWL or within the APA video review. Here is an abstract, so make sure that you view the abstract PowerPoint in D2L before trying to write it. There are some guidelines that are helpful. Just for formatting purposes, the abstract does start on a new page following the title page. So it should have a header and it should have a page number 2. And you also want to make sure that you label it the abstract. And the way you label it is just call it abstract with upper and lowercase letters centered on the top of the page. So you can see how that is done here on the slide. Then to the table of contents, it really should look exactly like this. Table of contents appears centered at the top, again, following the APA guidelines for the use of the table of contents. So it really shouldn't look like anything else but this. You can use the sample exactly, make sure that you you include the page number. That seems to be a common mistake to forget about, but it should be laid out just like this one. Okay, so now you're going to fill in the content, which is really the easy part because you have already created the content. You will just go back and make sure that your content has been corrected from the feedback that I gave you for each one of the assignments. So they'll go in the order that is listed. You'll have your program rationale, your statement of need, your program purpose, goals, and objectives. So you need to make sure that everything is corrected. Then for your program design and implementation, in this section you should discuss the program format by explaining the program design and the implementation. So you can mention the time frame with a reference to the timeline in the appendix, and we'll talk more about the appendix in just a little bit. But this is also where you will include your corrected interventions. So now is the time to also mention that the behavior change theory that might be most appropriate for your target group and your topic. So it does seem like a little bit more, but once you see the sample, you'll see that you're really plugging in your own interventions that you have come up with already, and then just adding a little bit more detail from the information that you've gathered on previous assignments. Then again, you'll include your evaluation and your budget that are both corrected. And then you will want to think about your appendix. So basically your appendix includes any material that you reference in your proposal. So if you did not mention it as part of your proposal, you don't include it in the appendix. Basically the appendix follows the reference page and are headed and numbered the same as the rest of the paper. So it's just a continuation. Each appendix should deal with a separate topic and start on a new page. So you can see here on these examples how how to format your appendix. You want to make sure and label them. So when you think about labeling for Appendix A, you see here on the screen, within my proposal, I talked about Appendix A, the health issue profile, prior to talking about Appendix B within the paper. So they need to go in order as to when you talk about the different examples or the different appendix that you are including. Here's Appendix C. Please make sure that you label it with the appendix at the top, so whichever letter it is, that you do use the running head and you do have the page number. You also will title it whatever it may be. So you'll do it exactly like it's listed here, and you can also take a look at the examples like I said on D2L. When you reference your appendix within your proposal itself, you can do it one of two ways. So it could be a part of the sentence, or it could be in parentheses at the end of the sentence, which is not necessarily included in the conversation itself. So the first one listed is separate. It's in a parentheses, and then the second one, you're actually stating where Appendix B can be found, or what Appendix B actually is. So it's important to acknowledge it within your proposal, but you also need to acknowledge it correctly. So take a look at these two examples and the examples on D2L for further information. So your final project, like I said multiple times throughout this presentation, look at the examples. I have examples throughout that you can follow. Make sure you're checking on D2L. You don't want to wait for the last minute because you do want to pull everything together and get everything corrected as you're working on it, which makes it easier to complete not only the proposal but your presentation itself.